everyone. Welcome to Oceans Podcast episode 3. It's been a while since our last episode, and today is a very special episode because we have our first guest, and what a big guest to have as the first guest.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
I think people would have guessed that the first guest would be a student or, a quartet member who we still haven't had on this podcast. But yeah, this is Michellina, a saxophonist from Singapore. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
I started right here in University of Melbourne. So when I was growing up in school, I started on the saxophone in the school band, and so I never knew that I would make this my career.
Oh wow!
And so like at the end of my high school or JC in Singapore, I decided, okay, I don't want to do like the normal kind of becoming a doctor, a lawyer anymore, and I wanted to be a musician. So then I met Joshua Hyde in Singapore, in the Singapore Saxophone Symposium.
Is that
this
when
was
you
the
were in
very
high
first
school?
one. I think it was right after I finished high school.
Yeah.
And so I was, I'm going to audition for Melbourne, and like he was from Melbourne, so he was telling me all these great things about this the school here.
Was he still like living here in that back then? Or?
I think he was just finished and moving to France.
Wow, finished in Melbourne. Wow, okay.
Yeah, so and then I did the audition in Singapore, and I came here not knowing what to expect at all because I never studied saxophone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was, a huge jump in the deep end, I must say.
Yeah.
But so enriching. I was so happy.
Wow.
Yeah, completely different city, and Melbourne is such a beautiful city to live in.
Yeah.
Being back here as well, when I was walking along the bridge, and like, wow, what a city we live in. You live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How different do you think is it much different from last time when you were studying here?
Not so much different actually.
Yeah.
There's still, the feelings are the same. You see tourists around.
Mm-hmm.
You see
the weather.
The weather. It's beautiful weather right now.
Yeah. Sometimes we're blessed with good weather.
Yeah. So and being back in the con as well.
Yeah.
It's a different building, but still the feeling is very much similar.
Yeah. Nice. It's interesting because when I was in high school, Josh Hyde sometimes came to, because I went to Sydney Con High.
Okay.
And he knows Nexus Quartet. So he comes in, and a few of us do masterclass type of lessons. But he was already in France, probably already finished in France. He already won Lundex by then as well. I didn't know much. I didn't even know he was from Melbourne. But it was I had a class with Joe in the Sydney Summer Academy, the one that Jay runs. And he was the one convincing me to go to Melbourne from Sydney. Melbourne's such a good city. It was the first festival. I remember you played with Mary Osborne as well.
Did,
He just convinced me that come visit Melbourne. And then as soon as I came to that festival, it was my first time kind of in Melbourne. I started to consider moving here because it's just so nice here.
Yeah. What is the difference
between Melbourne and
Sydney?
Well, I think Melbourne is more accessible.
Okay. In terms of
transport.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. The trams, especially in Sydney. Have you been to
Yes,
Sydney?
I have.
Yeah. It's well, they have light rail there now, which didn't really help much, to be honest. But the stations, the train stations in the city, they're 10-minute walk away from each other, and there's no in between. You have to
walk or
it's very big. Yeah, there's no trams, and I don't know. When I moved here, when I was in uni, I think the nightlife here is quite
vibrant.
Good. Yeah. I think it's getting better in Sydney now. We went for the Ocean concert in Sydney, and I think it's a lot better. Now we came back and we're sometimes the streets in Melbourne are actually a bit empty on some nights, and I prefer that. To be honest, it's a bit more calm. But that's I guess we both got abducted into the Melbourne Conservatorium
we did.
and really enjoyed it. So it's good that you're back now. You are from Singapore and you moved to Australia. I saw on your bio that there's a lot of stuff Singaporean artists. I really like that it also has like you have a section that's like Singaporean composition. Do you think this like Singaporean identity is like something that's very important in your musicianship, or is it something that formed later on? Like, what could you tell us more about that?
I think this all kind of consolidated when I was having lessons with Ian, actually, when I was here. And so I was in my second or third year, and Ian was like, okay, you have to play something that is, you know, you, and something that is maybe Singaporean, doesn't have to be Singaporean, but it's you. And so that's where like I had my first venture into playing Singaporean works. And so I played this piece by Dr. Zachariah Goh. And yeah, so Dr. Goh wrote this piece when he was living in US, and it talks about, you know, missing home. And so, you know, like I was here and also, you know, feeling the same feelings, and yeah, so it was very relatable. And like since then I have commissioned so many different composers, and yeah, I mean there's, you know, there's bits of me in every piece, and I find that so beautiful.
So is it it kind of was pushed by the voice that you're kind of this your home culture, and then you're traveling somewhere else, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing. Like you're like the perfect guest for this for Ocean, because like we are trying to be this Asian Australian saxophone quartet, and I think I have later on, because it mentions that your Southeast Asian identity, because I'm from the Philippines, which is also Southeast Asian, and I think it's quite underrepresented.
It is,
especially in like classical music in general. I think it's really better in saxophone music, to be honest. And I think in Australia, especially with Joseph, he gets us to play a lot of, you know, Asia Pacific type of music, which I think was really good for me when I came here. There's not much Filipino stuff that I have interacted with.
Not yet, maybe.
Yeah, not yet. I think it was really cool at APSA when we went in 2019. There was a Filipino like jazz ensemble, and I was like, oh, wow, these people exist. Like that's really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess maybe another question could be, what is it in this identity that you like, a message you want to spread, or something that resonates a lot with you?
I guess with every collaboration with a different composer is a different message. And so like along the way I've like really worked with different composers. Let me think of the most recent one, with Emily Ko, and she wrote a piece for baritone saxophone and bass clarinet. And so she's a good friend of me and my duo partner Daniel. And so this piece is you know, so representative of our personalities more than, you know, anything else. And so when we played the piece, wow, it was just like, you know, chemistry. The chemistry was amazing. Like everything was working really, really well. And so when a composer, you know, takes like elements of our personality and, you know, put it into the music, yeah, I mean, we are also creating a new generation of music as well, right? Because like there's not really a standardized way of composition for Singaporean composition. And so I guess it is quite exciting, paving the way for Singaporean composition.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, people will look back and be like, wow, you know, like these composers have been writing so many pieces, and like in all different kinds of styles.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know Singapore is a very multicultural country, and there's, you know, taking elements of like all kinds of.
I think I think in your collaborations it seems like there's a big emphasis on personality.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, and I think that's really interesting, because I think when people normally think about new music or new music artists, it's like maybe the main idea of people think like, oh, something is new or something's changing, or like how can we push boundaries? I think it's really interesting that your approach is kind of more like
the heart.
It's a personality first, and then see what comes out of it, which I think it's super interesting.
And then you don't force the composition as well.
Exactly, it's not like
contrast.
how can we do different
Yes,
flutter tones?
exactly,
you know?
exactly,
It's
exactly.
like, let's just play around with different things. And I think, it's super interesting.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit more about your projects, like so your ensembles and stuff. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about
Which one?
well, maybe about this duet first.
Yep.
Yeah. It's with bass clarinet.
Bass
is it?
clarinet.
Yeah.
So actually all clarinets. So
Yeah.
it's a saxophone and clarinet ensemble, a duo actually. And so Daniel and I, we met in Amsterdam at the at the conservatory. And so when we came to Singapore, we realized why not work together, because we have such similar.
That is so cool that you both ended up in Singapore as well, right?
we were the only Singaporeans in Amsterdam at that point.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's how we. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and so we came together, and our friendship was. It was just like there was so much chemistry, and nothing seemed forced. We enjoy each other's presence, and when we work together, it's so efficient and so enjoyable. So like before I came to Melbourne last week, we had a rehearsal, and we were brainstorming for a new project.
Yeah.
And so we are both super busy, and so we picked up 1 hour from our lives, and we just came together nothing. We weren't thinking about anything else. Just going through, and we came up with so many different ideas in that 1 hour, and I felt recharged, re-energized. Yeah, and so collaborations like that with musicians that are of the same mindset really changes, grows you as a person, and also creates new opportunities and new art.
Yeah. I think it's really cool because in those, when you promote, or I don't know if you're even thinking of promoting, but when you post those projects or rehearsals, it looks really fun.
It is really fun.
You're always really happy, and I think that's a way to have these projects where maybe it doesn't feel like work first. It's you kind of get in the flow.
Exactly.
I think it's really good when you find people like that you can collaborate with.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me about any other ensembles that you're currently working with?
I'm currently playing with this ensemble called Weird After Taste, and so we started last year actually, and so it's a 6-people ensemble with 2 winds, 2 strings, and 2 pianists. And also each of us have different strengths. So the pianists, they're really good with electronics.
Wow.
And so it is really it's like a mishmash of people, and the string players also work a lot with electronics. And so the soundscapes that we create is really on a whole other level, where we're playing with live electronics, we're playing with delays, feedbacks, and all these kind of interesting things. And it's different hearing the different instruments coming together. How often do you get to play as a saxophonist with string instruments? With a cello, with a violin, with a viola.
I mean, it seems for you that you play with a lot of other instruments and people. And I have a question.
Yes.
How is the best way, or how do you get started, with this collaboration? It sounds like you are really interested in collaboration, and your musical ideals are pushed a lot by collaboration. And so how do you go about doing this? Do you just go find people, or do they contact you, or do you start with an idea, or do you start with the person?
I mean, with all these different relationships, it has started in different ways. But I find the ones that last are the ones that happen organically. No one is forcing. It just flows. And so I have tried with different people, and in Singapore, everyone is really busy. So I like to think that the people who I end up working with are the ones that are really special, because we take time out of our busy lives, and we give to each other that beautiful moments of rehearsal and whatnot. So I don't think collaborations are have to be forced, but of course you have to take the first step. So it's kind of people first, connection first, and then see what ideas come out of that, right? Exactly. And with that, you don't necessarily have to collaborate with musicians always. So one project we collaborated with a light designer. now we're in talks with a rapper. We are
Wow.
looking
Yeah.
to see sneak peek.
Yeah.
Might or might not happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also collaborated with a clothing brand.
Wow.
So they sent me some clothes, and that was really nice.
I think I saw that actually.
Yeah, and it's a clothing brand that I wear regularly. Not today,
Wow.
unfortunately, but yeah.
Damn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really
That's
fun.
really
It was
cool.
really fun. Did a nice shoot for them.
Yeah, I think I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. My teacher's Joseph. He does like a lot of concert curation, that type of stuff, and I think a lot of us here recently have been doing that in our recitals. Like you see in his office, there's like everyone's programs, and his idea of putting them there is like we all have the same exam, but like all of our concerts look very different. But it's not something that happens in all of the instruments here. It's like pretty unique to saxophone. And so my third year recital, I worked with an animator for the first time, and I think it was cool because we were both students, and we were both like learning about she was learning how to animate.
Okay.
Yeah, she was doing like an animation subject, I was learning how that works, and she was, I think it's interesting non-musicians how they view repertoire, or like how they feel repertoire. I did the barrier, the soprano one, and getting her to listen to that, and I matched it with a poem, like an Australian poem.
Okay.
And I was thinking I think this really captures the distortion of time that happens in the second stanza. She's like, yeah, okay, this is really interesting. I've never heard music like this. I can't nod my head to it, the barrier, right? It's like she's never heard music that's like effects and gestures.
And gestures.
Yeah. So I think that was really interesting. And now sneak peek as well. My honors recital, I'm collaborating with a stage production person. She's studying stage production in the VCA area.
Wow. Very close by.
Yeah, and so we're having meetings, and she's like, this area of this. It's a different way of thinking, but then I'm interested to have her hear different weird music that we have in our repertoire.
Yeah. And it's a different language altogether as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I wonder if these collaborations are stemming from because the new generation have a shorter attention span. So we are trying to include other senses to heighten this classical music. What are your thoughts on it?
So cause I'm trying to get filled in on a lot of that research, and the school of evolving the classical concert design. That's like the whole, it's like in my dreams, like these academic texts. And so I think there is that one aspect where contemporary audiences, the idea is the more you can latch onto, the better it is. And they're doing studies of film music, and associating a visual or a character with that song is like a multisensory experience, right? But for example, Joseph's dissertation, it talks about putting that second, but putting an idea first. So you start with an idea, and that lets you then decide, does this idea get enhanced or detracted by visuals? Or does this idea get changed by having dancers? And so instead of putting that at the forefront, having the idea first, and the idea of that is that instead of connecting audiences in multisensory ways, you maybe can have a chance of having a personal connection by putting your own heart into the project, and then they can connect with that. Because I think it's really interesting as well, because our generation, we listen to a lot of K-pop, and I think that is engaging because there's bands, they're really good looking, they're singers, there's a lot of sounds in the production. It's almost like a hyper pop type of genre, and that it came from Europe, that type of EDM cross, right? And that is more multi-sensory experience. But I think the biggest thing about commercial music as opposed to classical music is that there's a connection between the personality of the artist to the listener. they are celebrities, so they also market their personalities. And I think that is not something that happens in classical music.
That's true, yeah.
That when you come and watch a concert, you don't really know much about them except maybe that they're really good. And I think that's kind of the tradition where, you know, audiences are kind of like just praising the idea or the performer. So trying to develop some personal connection is really good. And I think that's why your type of collaborations, where like you're putting your heart into this project, makes it really interesting to follow, even for like me and Ocean, who have known you and your projects. Like it's a nicer connection to have when we like watch your performances and like, have you teach here as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Did you have any thoughts on that type of stuff, like multisensory and engaging audiences?
Yeah, so like when I came back from Europe, I was really like, you know, how can I take the 5 senses and like, you know, input every single sense into like in a concert. So it's been an experimental approach to things.
Yeah.
Not so analytical, but just trying things out.
Yeah.
And along the way, you know, distilling ideas that really work. And and then, you know, like how can you develop and how can you accentuate the idea? Yeah, that's been my approach.
Yeah, cause I watched a video recently, just a YouTube, it's like smart people talking about things, you know, one of those videos that just come up randomly and you click at 1 a.m. Yeah, about, cause like we're basically designing a product, right? Like as much as it's like a passion project, we need to be able to sell it. And the way that they think about designing products is that you have a period of time where you just keep thinking about ideas until there's no more ideas, and then you start cutting it down to see. And I think sometimes in the tools of like a classical concert or like classical creating a project, we have like this tradition, and we can't think outside of that, right? And I think I'm really glad I play saxophone because I think it's
there's more chance, there's less of tradition.
Yeah, I mean like where there's no track for us to be gears in a orchestra. And I think that track is, you know, lets us think a lot. Yeah.
Forces us to think a lot.
Like because we're not fighting for a job in an orchestra I think part of that is that you kind of have to market your own brand as a saxophonist. And I think you've done that really well. Like when we think of like here, when we think of Asian saxophonists, you're like one that comes up quite prevalent.
Thank you.
So my next topic was education in general. I think it's just another part of your bio that says like you've taught at many places. So I wrote down Melbourne Saxophone, a bunch of World Saxophone Congress where you've taught there. I've never been to a congress yet, and I honestly I don't really know much about congress except.
I haven't taught at a congress, but performed at a
How's that? How's congress? Congress just got announced recently. So
in Spain.
How's congress?
I actually love the energy of a congress, and like, you know, like a whole bunch of saxophonists coming together, and we like do like super geeky, super nerdy kind of saxophone talk. And you get to hear all kinds of music from all over the world. And I mean, after that whole day, you drink with people and you have conversations. And you know that the connection I find really beautiful. You hear like every saxophonist has struggles. I mean, you see them on social media and they're doing super well. Like you don't hear the stories of like, you know, struggling with a student, struggling with a career,
all the
for example.
relatable,
Exactly.
but not celebrated parts, you know, on social media. Where were the congresses that you went to?
I was in Strasbourg.
Was that the one that Joe always talks about?
I'm sure. I mean, he was there. He was on the organizing team.
It's the first chunk of his dissertation. It's like
really?
It inspired him to do this like concert type of reimagining because he was like, all these concerts are the same. And, you know.
I mean, it was a really nice congress. I mean, the city is amazing. Have you been? No.
I've never been to Europe.
No, you have to.
So that's why I'm pretty keen to go to this congress.
And then there was one in Zagreb. Zagreb was, wow, I played in so many different things with Mary, with the quartet, with big ensemble as well. Yeah. So that was a nice one to do as well. Yeah, I think like the creation process, grant writing process, it teaches you. I was a student at that time, so it really teaches you, life lessons with being a real musician. Wherever you draw the line.
The marketing and creative side, like
and
having to be responsible for both, right?
The money. Where does the money come from? Yeah.
How about the Asian Sax Congress?
The latest one, 2019. This was a pretty cool one. We started a new ensemble, Dawn of Asia Saxophone Ensemble.
I saw
with
that.
all the
that was
superstars.
Sick.
Yeah.
And that was even cooler because I was a first year. It was my first time traveling like Thailand, Singapore, and like all these really cool teachers. It was like in a show, or like an anime where like there's like these cool people, and then a saxophone ensemble with like coolest people. I remember Jason was such a big fan. God, that's so cool.
I mean that was cool. Hey, there's Yo. Nikita played as well. Vincent David was a soloist. Oh, just all the big names and so fun to work with. I mean, the energy was just like, and then after that, we go for drinks and even more energy there. So much fun. I love hanging out with saxophone players.
I mean, I was gonna say, even today, honestly, when we were geeking out about saxophone, I didn't know I am such a saxophone geek until like, we're like, haha, Yamaha, C1, no one, like, people would think we're speaking alien language, and we're just And Singapore Saxophone Symposium.
Yes, that's happening this year as well.
Did it happen last year?
It happened last year.
I remember. Someone emailed us.
Arno came.
Still have never.
Arno is coming again this year.
Been in Arno's presence.
This year? He's coming again.
Okay, you could convince me. So the problem last year, because our quartet went, the Odyssey. Sorry, not last year. In 2019. 2019. That was like 4 years ago now, right? Pre-COVID. Singapore Sax Symposium. We weren't actually allowed to go, and we didn't get like direct funding for it because it overlapped 2 days with our uni start. But we went anyway, and Joe, I'm pretty sure, was not meant to go either because he's staff. But he was an artist there. Maybe he got approved because he recorded part of it for his PhD actually. But that was awesome. Singapore is so cool. Like if I bought so many clothes in Singapore that I still kind of still wear today. Like a lot of floral summer clothes and really nice material that you just don't get in Australia because you hear Australia's 5-year cycle behind fashion.
I get a lot of clothes. I still wear my clothes that I bought from Australia.
Maybe fair enough. Maybe I just don't shop in the right places, but I really love shopping in Asia. I always wait until I go back to the Philippines to shop.
But the clothes fit better for sure.
I remember. My parents told me to prepare extra space in the luggage because they knew I would really like shopping in Singapore. And I don't know, is Singapore known for shopping? It's pretty.
We have a whole row of shops,
that's
of malls, not even shops, of a mall.
That's where I went there for a whole day. I think it was the day before symposium. And, everyone's practicing, and I was like, I need 1 day to shop. It was so good. I love Singapore.
Me too.
Me
too.
And so we're talking about the symposium. Could you tell us more about that, the Singapore Symposium?
So we are in our 11th year of the symposium, and I mean, this symposium had me coming to Melbourne in the first place.
Wow, really?
So when I went back, I've been a little bit in the part of the organization of things, and I mean seeing how people grow through the years as well. It has been a journey for Singaporeans, and the guests that we get to Singapore, it's pretty amazing. We see some really big names every year. So I think Singaporeans are very spoiled. Or very lucky, let's use the word lucky. Lucky that we get, to bring a little bit of the US of Europe to Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the year we went, it was Philippe, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we finally got to meet Dr. Go.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, who like we heard of a lot, just from studying.
Yeah.
It was really cool. Because like he taught Joe as well, right, Philippe?
Okay. Yes.
He was like, you know, we were getting drinks, and you know, Australians, we just drink, you know. We were like, our group, they were like, tower.
Yes.
Like, this place has tower, and Philippe's there with his like wine, you know, and his food. We're like, oh, sorry, we're so Australian. You know? Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, and I read Adjunct Lecturer of Saxophone.
Yes, I'm a lecturer.
Yeah, how's that? You were talking to Joe earlier about your students as well.
Yeah. I
How's
have
that?
2 students at the Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts.
Yeah.
It's going really well.
The tertiary students, right?
Tertiary students, yeah. Going really well, yeah.
I think that's so exciting. Like, I think teaching at a uni is kind of one of it would be like one of my dreams.
Yeah, it was my dream as well. I mean, it is still my dream. Yeah.
Achieved it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
You really are shaping the next generation of saxophonists. Yeah, so I bear that in mind as well. You know.
Yeah. What's kind of the main things you keep in mind when you're teaching, or like the way that you shape them? Is there anything you think of, or is it just?
I like to think that now I'm a bit more European in the saxophone way of playing because I spent a lot of time there, and you know, the joy of music making is not so much seen in Singapore. It's a lot result oriented in Singapore. So people are like striving for like, you know, A's all the time and like, you know, like distinctions. And like, you know, the process I think is really, really important, and like how you enjoy the process, which from the class we had this afternoon. Yeah. You know, we are trying things, we're experimenting with things. You like things, you don't like things. But you know, you're having fun along the way. Yeah. It's not just, I mean, technique, yes, of course, but like how can you enjoy, you know, practicing?
So I think on that topic, sometimes like I think when the more you're in, you're doing music, you realize that success you can't really get it, or you can't measure it. But the more you try to chase a success, the less you can get it.
I think it works in this like artistic way.
Yeah,
you're so focused on one thing, but you know, it's so broad and so diverse.
I think once you find like, you know, the thing that you like doing, that's when you actually shoot up in how many concerts you do and what kind of the quality of the concerts you do. It's like once you stop focusing on that, somehow it just pops up. That's the really cool part about music is that you can realize that. And as a student, this is really your chance to make mistakes, to try everything, to work with different people. And not cost money. Exactly. There's no financial risk doing a weird concert in your recital.
You pay school fees. Maybe that's the
But you know, the school fees doesn't go up if you don't sell tickets to your recital. You know? Yeah, I think. Yeah,
that's true.
Taking risk, and you know, I've been thinking of it as like, you know, just throwing things at the dartboard and seeing what sticks. And you know, I think some students or some people, certain types of music it doesn't feel right for them, and
and then you shouldn't force it as well. For sure.
Do you really like teaching? Is that like one of your main passions? Or is it like performing, or is it like collaborating, or is it, you know?
When I first started teaching, so you can get away with a lot in Singapore actually. So I had like a grade 8, and you know, that's okay to teach. And to this day, some of my colleagues still get asked, and they have their masters for their grade 8 cert. So you can get away with quite a lot. So when I was teaching, before I even came to Melbourne, I didn't enjoy it. Like not one bit. I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble. Yeah, but now, you know, I've seen like things, I've experienced different students, seen the world as well. Yeah, and
you have an idea of like what music is,
exactly,
like the formation.
Exactly, and also my stance with music and like playing the saxophone. I really love teaching. Really, I really do. With all different kinds of students, I have students from 8 years old to 60, 70 years old.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean, of course, of all ranges as well. I teach beginners, I teach like really, diploma students. Yeah, and so.
What do you think was your mindset that made you not like teaching?
I think I just didn't know what I was doing. I was
Okay.
faking it till I make it.
Yeah.
A little bit too much when I was younger.
Yeah, because we just had a masterclass earlier, and I think something I found interesting when you were teaching. I'm glad I went first because I could like just observe. You know, I think you genuinely enjoy hearing the ideas that we say.
Yes.
And I could see it on your face when it's like, oh, they think that. Oh, that could be interesting to hear. And then you see what it sounds like, and it's like, oh, that made sense. You know, because some emotions work for some people, but then as long as it is the one you feel, it makes sense. And I think when Tash was playing the Dubois, I like really felt it shaping. It was more about the expression rather than the.
I mean, at this level of playing, I mean, the technical things, of course, you have your teacher to solve it for you, and so you want to hear different ideas. And like for me, every one of you is so musical, so it's about distilling what you already know how to do, and making you a better version of you.
Musical potential.
Exactly. I mean, there's sometimes that it's wrong, of course. Then I will say it. Yeah, but generally, you know what you're doing, but you don't know. It's not a conscious thing.
Yeah. What the idea is, and then what it will sound like.
Exactly.
How to get it out there.
Exactly. Yeah. So then it's just bringing out your potential. Yeah, and I find that really beautiful.
Yeah. I'd be interested on this topic of passion or goals. What are your goals in teaching or like in general, like saxophone playing or just music in general or life?
That's a very broad question.
Life. What kind of stuff do you want to do next? Or what kind of stuff do you want to try?
I am really enjoying the teaching career. I think like I have a clear trajectory of where I'm going right now, so you're just gonna keep that trajectory going.
I think that's the best when you are happy with the way you're going.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to go to manifest this, be like a radio DJ at some point.
A radio DJ?
Yeah, why not?
Wow.
And to like, pick pieces to speak on radio. I think I have ideas that, the world would like to hear.
Yeah. What kind of music? Like classical music?
I mean, it could be classical. I also really like rap.
Rap? Yeah, there you go. Maybe there's something here.
Manifesting.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool.
2040.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's pretty close. 2040 is closer than you think. We're closer to 2040 than 2000.
You're right.
Which is weird, right?
Perspective, right? All about the perspective.
It's pretty close, I think. And you're probably starting to work on going in that direction sooner than 2040. So it's even closer than that, right? Yeah, that's really cool. And like doing speaking as well.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, like I remember there was one year I did fine music in Sydney. There was like a competition, and it was the first time I ever spoke on radio when I was first year. And I think back then I was very introverted still. Do you know like MBTI?
Yes.
Yeah, I was super introverted, and then suddenly now I'm really extroverted.
So what is your MBTI now?
ENTP.
Okay.
And I used to be INFJ.
Okay.
So like everything just changed. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was drinking.
Melbourne,
I don't know. Yeah, Melbourne maybe. Yeah. But I remember that was really scary. But now obviously we're doing this podcast.
Yeah.
I think
you're a changed person.
I like really can like the problem now is I can't shut up. Like I just
don't say that.
I mean it's true, and like it's not a bad thing if someone can't shut up. Like you get to hear their ideas and you get to argue and like I think I really like arguing. Actually that's a very funny thing in our quartet. I always have the opposite opinion of Jason.
Okay.
And which is
on purpose?
No, not on purpose. Maybe sometimes on purpose on either side. But I think like whenever there's a conflict, there's something that's gonna happen. Like I think there's something valuable in that, and I think that's why I really like talking. Like these things. Yeah. How about you? Like you get to form your radio show right now. What kind of things do you want on like
something that would get people's brains going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like not purposely controversial.
In what way? Like through music or
Through music for sure, through music.
So like what's an example?
Wow. Let me think.
Or like what's an example of a musical experience you had that really got you thinking, for example?
I was recently playing with the SSO, not the Sydney one, but the Singapore one.
Yeah.
And so
Not to be confused.
yeah, exactly. So there's a national grading coming up for the bands.
Yeah.
And so I was playing in like a band, wind band,
Mm-hmm.
to make it more specific. And so I was invited to have a speech to speak to the young ones.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, they asked questions like, I think the most, like, what message would you like to share with younger musicians? And, you know, I could have gone the musical way and like, okay, do this accent, do this, you know, play the phrase, record yourself, things like that. But like, I feel, you know, there are characteristics that, you know, come from learning an instrument that is, you cannot replicate it. Like, you know, determination, perseverance, resilience, all these big words. Not really big, but yeah. So, yeah, learning an instrument is really not an easy feat.
Yeah.
And like, you know, things like that, where it's, I mean, I guess you know, but do you know what you get from
it's
it?
those kind of things that you don't know until you experience it.
Exactly. I mean, you know, but you don't feel it, or you don't, the frustration.
So is it this realization that you want to, like, you know, set this epiphany on your listeners? Like,
hopefully.
I don't know until I do it. Like that type of existential thinking. I think that's really interesting as well. Yeah, but how to invoke that thought through music.
Exactly.
And you want to do that through radio shows.
Yes, to distill like what you take from music and, you know, giving it back to the audience. That for me would be quite exciting.
And I think the art form of our radio show is so different.
Different as well, yes.
Wow. And I guess in a radio show you're constantly collaborating as well sometimes.
I guess, with different...
There's so much opportunity to collaborate. Wow. You're really selling this to me. Maybe I'm gonna steal it.
Oh no!
It will have the same initials of the radio show, like Singapore radio show is the SRS, and I'll be Sydney radio show. Like the S, sorry, it'll be the same. Yeah, not to be confused, you know. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, you can take that. Copyright, patented. Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, even if we were to do the same thing, it would be completely different, I'm sure.
That's true. Yeah, just like music. And
exactly.
Just like life.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I would take some lessons from you as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, from listening to your show and vice versa. I mean, it could be a nice exchange as well.
That's a new collaboration.
Yeah, exactly.
Radio collaboration.
Across what is the ocean that separates us? Pacific Ocean.
I don't.
Oh.
No.
Is it not the Pacific?
Let's not leave the geography to the musicians. Yeah. Okay. Well, the next topics I kind of were about your education. Oh, maybe we can go a bit into it. Like after studying at Melbourne, how is that? Why Europe, or like why certain places? It's like I grew up to be a very big Arno fan because I don't know if you know Andrew Smith from Sydney.
Yes.
He would literally tell me, like in high school, right? Playing like Hot Sonata, classic Arno piece.
Yeah.
It's like famous for Hot Sonata.
He
would make me write WWAD, and I was like, what does it mean?
Arno
I thought it meant what would Andrew do, but he was like, no, not me. I'm not important. What would Arno do? You know? So could you tell us a little bit more about your studies?
I knew I wanted to go to Europe.
Yeah.
I heard so many stories. I mean, from Joe as well, from Josh, from Kay, you know. And then from Barry as well, actually. Yeah, and like, you know, the natural progression of someone from Melbourne who wants to go to Bordeaux because of all the stories as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, maybe I need some technique. So when actually before that, like it was the World Congress in Strasbourg. So I knew I wanted to study with Arno.
Before you graduated?
Yeah. So I had a lesson with both Arno and Maribe. And so I went to Arno. I'm like, Arno, can I do my masters with you after I graduate? He said, no, you're not ready. And then go somewhere else. Yeah. So then I was like a bit heartbroken. No, I went to Maribe and it was really, really perfect. Like, I mean, we worked so much on technique, and I knew I wanted to study with her anyway. And she's so hardcore, really so hardcore. Yeah.
I don't know all this.
Sometimes I still hear her screaming in my head.
Even joined us.
Yeah, I mean, I was there for not a long time, but it impacted me so much. And from there, I did the audition to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And I think it was one place that we were fighting for. And so it was quite,
Just one spot.
Yeah, just one spot. And I was very, very lucky I got the one spot. Yeah.
Wow.
And I got to study with Arno. And, the first time we had like a group lesson, Arno was just like warming up, just playing the saxophone. I was like, oh my god, this guy has such a resonance. He was filling the whole hall. And it was, like all the CDs that I've listened to of Arno is like in real life.
Yeah.
It was so, like undescribable, the feeling. I was like,
Yeah, the inspiration.
Yeah. So beautiful. I mean, he's just warming up, playing like rubbish, not even notes, and it was so beautiful. The sound, the connection, the legato, the vibrato. I was like, yes, I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and studying with Arno has been.
And so that was ever since you met him at Congress.
Yeah.
You knew you wanted to study from Arno.
Yes.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah.
Maybe you're really selling the Singapore Saxophone Symposium to me this year, because I haven't been in his presence live.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Really, really. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think some of the I'm not sure about Arno's teaching, but the thing that a lot of people talk about is his musical ideas, and he has the interesting recording, right? Whether you agree or not, it's like the one that catches your attention. It's the one that's different.
Yes.
And I think that kind of comes out in the way that you talk about music, and and maybe it's a connection to like you wanting to put your own personality, because that will make it different to everyone, right? It's not really different to make it different. It's a different so that it sits with you, right?
Exactly.
And I think that comes out a lot in the way you talk about music to us, like and teach us. Yeah. So I wanted to ask if that was right.
Yeah, for sure, inspired by Arno. Yeah, actually also inspired by Taco. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was already, he rooted this in me from like my 3rd and 4th year of the Bachelor.
Yeah, wow. It's really good hearing these ideas like that came up from Melbourne people and teachers. Like we're in good hands. We can one day be like you,
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
And then, so did you study with Maribe before Arno? Or was it, did you study with her after as well, or was it just
No,
before?
that's it. So I was in Melbourne for 4 years.
Yeah.
I took a gap year because I was broke.
Yeah,
and
I
money.
I think most of us do. We say it so that we can align with the schedule.
No,
but
it's really because there was no money.
Yeah.
So I saved, and then I went to France, and then I went to Amsterdam.
Yeah. And had you ever been to Europe before that, or did you go to Congress?
The Congress, that was my one time.
Did that make it easier for you to go to Europe again?
Yeah, I guess so. Because I knew what I was expecting.
I'm really worried about potentially, because I have to. Yeah, I did honors last year, and I'm doing it over 2 years instead of 1 year, because I really did not feel ready to go to another country. I was like, it's really safe in Melbourne. Like not like that it's dangerous, but like I feel like I know people here, and I know the staff in the uni, and it's like every day I can go to uni and feel safe. And like going to a new place of like I have no idea about European culture. That's why I would be keen to go to Congress just to see a little bit about that. I've never been there, but that's comforting to hear that it's like that.
I think this is like the quote of the day, where when you have discomfort, it really brings about like growth in you as a person, personality, as a musician, as an artist. And I mean, it's something that is you cannot replicate. I mean, like as much as I'm trying to teach my students, this like the French way, the Amsterdam way of playing. I mean, like, because you're immersed, right, in that situation, you hear sounds that are so familiar.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's replicable.
And the feeling and the realization.
Yeah, the discomfort, yeah. I remember
Yeah.
in France, I was so uncomfortable. I didn't know anyone. Like, I really didn't know anyone. Yeah, even to get a place, to rent a place, it was so difficult. To open a bank account, it was so difficult in French. Oh.
Yeah, it's always that people coming from Australia are always homeless for the first
Yeah.
because we just do not know what is happening.
Yeah. And then you just figure your way around, and it gets easier. Yeah.
Yeah, but you just have to go through it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Here's a question: what is something of importance, or something that stuck with you from Arno and Maribe, like one each? What's the most important thing that you got from them, or what sticks with you?
I think with Maribe is, integrity to the music, and how you see the music and treat the music with integrity. Everything is written there, the details are written there, and how can you present this music without any compromise, no faking it. Yeah, so Maribe really she was like, you cannot fake things. Yeah, and so with Arno, it was actually more about finding your personality as an artist, as a musician, and a whole self-discovery thing with sound.
It sounds like that is the thing you were looking for, to do. Maybe you had a hunch that you had to find some self-discovery in music, and then that
perhaps, yeah.
I think that's really interesting. And I think the thing with Maribe, I think something I realized pretty recently, I was doing EP3, and EP3 is the one where for students, it's you realize that maybe you should play what's on the page, because everyone knows what it is, right? And so if you don't play what's on the page, we all know, right? And I think it's weird, when you're a student in that position, you imagine the music as one thing, but then when you actually listen to what is written, it's actually a different story than what you would think. Yeah, and I think that's something interesting in the Talaman, because there's barely anything written, and it could be whatever, but there's still people who could say it's right or wrong. Yeah, I think we can leave it there. I think that's really good. Do you have any final things, or plug your social media, or any projects that are coming up? Because I think that would be really interesting for sax players. I'm gonna advertise this too.
Okay. Let me think.
Yeah.
What do I have coming up? I'm taking a long holiday in May.
Yeah.
Not doing anything.
Nice.
That's not a plug. I think it's important to rest, so you don't burn out. Yes, the rest is important. And then in June, I have a concert with Good Aftertaste that's coming. In July, it's the Singapore Saxophone Symposium.
Is that concert, the one in June, is that recorded? Is there anything that's being recorded?
They're all recorded.
Yeah.
Whether it goes out, it depends.
Okay. Where would we be able to find it? Do you put it on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, follow Instagram.
Yeah. Okay.
It's at Michwichy, MICHWICHY.
Okay, that'll be in the description.
Thank you.
And then the symposium.
Symposium is happening in July. I'm going to be going to be playing in a festival in KL in November. I think that's the big things for now.
And then whatever projects come up on the side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Well, thanks for being on this episode. Thanks for the lessons, the words of wisdom, and thanks for being the first guest. This will probably make it easier for me to get guests on in the future, because now we've had but maybe guests will be a bit scared following up from you. So.
I hope not.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching. We hope you join us for the next episode. That's all. Bye.